Hello everyone, my name is Loco and welcome to the grand finals of the biggest StarCraft Evolution tournament that has been played so far. This particular series is for the lion's share of 20 million Korean won, which is about the equivalent of $14,500 US. We're starting off on a map called Silvid, where in the bottom left-hand corner, with the Brood War Protoss pieces playing in red, we're looking at none other than Classic's main Nexus, of course, one of the very best Protoss players in StarCraft 2. His opponent, well, you'll be very familiar with him as well, with the Blue Terran SCVs. These are, of course, the StarCraft 2 SCVs. We have none other than Cure. Alrighty, now this particular series was played recently. I have no idea what ended up going down here, but I'm excited to find out, because so far, I gotta say, this mod has been an absolute banger. And it seems that the tournament prize pools are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger over the course of time. So this mod kind of started off as, well, a fun little side project, and at this point it has grown to something very substantial, to the point where quite a few of the pro gamers are actively practicing and trying to get better. So, okay, we have StarCraft 1 Protoss here in game number 1 going up against StarCraft 2 Terran, but as per usual, we will be switching it up as the series progresses. So in the second game, we will likely see, well, Mr. Classic playing with the StarCraft 2 Protoss, and Cure, the Terran here, playing with the StarCraft 1 SCVs. Alrighty, now of course we're all very familiar with the way that StarCraft 2 works. I think some of the confusion, at least on my end, has mostly come from the StarCraft 1 units. Mostly just because I am not as familiar with it, and obviously they have changed a lot of the unit values just to make it a little bit more balanced. Because, as you may have already guessed, a lot of the StarCraft 1 balance, well, comes, for example, from the units being rather derpy. This unit right over here in particular, it is very well known for not being particularly... let's say it's like a level 100 Pokemon. You know when you get your Pokemon all the way up there and it just kind of ignores your commands? That is very much so what a Dragoon is like in StarCraft 1 as well. Sometimes you want it to go to one section of the map and it completely decides to do the exact opposite and walks to the other side of the map instead. So it gets very messy, but so far it has been an absolute blast. And obviously, yeah, sometimes I will maybe get some of the details wrong, but we can learn the game as we go. Now, it is a very, very quick robo facility here from Classic, who's already building up a shuttle. Robo support bay also coming up, so this will very likely be a good old Reaver drop once again. I'm assuming we're gonna see it. Yep. Usually this goes as well hand in hand with the Gravitic Drive upgrade, which I believe is what that icon indicates. The shuttle is in general, I mean, very useful, but obviously without speed, it's just rather slow. So the idea is going to be to make a bunch of scarabs on the Reaver and then send it towards the opponent's mineral line. Now, for the time being, nothing all too crazy right here for Cure. He is building all of his structures here in one little clump, but eventually we are going to be switching around the add-ons. This is looking like just a good old Terran bio opener. I mean, I'm assuming at the very least he's going to be transforming these units into bio eventually. At least that's what we do in SC2. For the time being, though, he can make a variety of stuff. I don't mind the idea of going for a Cyclone here. Okay, decided to cancel the Cyclone for just a moment in favor of a slightly faster Banshee together with the cloaking upgrade. But here is already that shuttle going across the map. Observatory on the back of this too. We've got the ranged upgrade coming up here for the Dragoons in just a moment. So let's see. How much damage can you deal with the very first Scarab? Dude, I love this ability so much. Good split right there from Cure. There is just a momentary daze when you drop the unit down. Oh, he's dropping it within the minimum range. Just to try and maximize the damage to make sure that the siege tank there can't fire. Okay, Cyclone not quite getting the perfect lock on here. Yeah, he's trying to just bait it out to put it on cooldown, but not a whole lot that can be done. And in the meantime, Classic is already expanding towards a third. By the way, we are not playing Terran Bio. Okay, quite uncommon in StarCraft 2. I mean, we've been seeing it more over the last few weeks, but it's quite uncommon, at least historically, to play Terran Mech against Protoss. Apparently because, I guess at least in StarCraft 1, you do not have access to units like, for example, the Immortal, the Tempest, the Void Ray, right? Like the basic troops that are usually quite good against Terran Mech. Cure is gonna go ahead and give it a shot right now against all of these Brood War units. Now we do have the Banshee in the meantime inside of the main base. Dragoons are desperately trying their very best to get over here. In the meantime, the Reaver drop does continue, and it will eventually connect there too, but already, quite a bit of damage was done. One of the Reavers ended up going down, and judging by the low HP Dragoon, I think the Banshee also indeed ended up falling. So, an eye for an eye thus far. Cure definitely getting the short end of the stick thus far, especially because it's hard for him to really do anything about the third Nexus. So, the third Nexus is nicely tucked away here. Obviously, we are alternating StarCraft 1 maps with StarCraft 2 maps as well, or at the very least, the map pool for this particular tournament had both StarCraft 1 as well as StarCraft 2 maps in it. Meaning that, well, we're starting off on Silvid for the time being, but we may go to something a little bit more conventional in just a moment. Although, this map is not as crazy as... Remember the map with all of the islands? I don't remember the name right now. Sirens? Isles of Sirens? Is that what the map is called? That map is absolutely nuts. This map right here, Silvid, not quite as crazy, but apparently you can still get your Hellions sliced up by a bunch of Zealots. He's just going to continue the harassment. Now, at this point, the red light, the red LEDs are on inside of the Cyclone's, well, front visor here, meaning that it's got a better lock-on. We're going to go into the Hyperflight Rotors upgrade too, which is the Banshee speed. Okay. So, for the time being, both players are really just trying to macro up. But the problem is that Cure obviously did not make his command center nearly as quickly. He will try to fly it across immediately, another factory as well, but I'm assuming we're going to be heading on over towards the third. Okay, Cyclone. Oh no, the Cyclones end up killing the Prism. Don't do it, Cure. Have a heart. Okay. Yeah, Reavers, I mean, for some reason, they were given only one hand, and their hand is coming out of their mouth. Very suboptimal movement. In the meantime, though, speaking of efficient movement, we do have the Banshees going in around the site, getting a little bit of damage done. Not so shabby, but we do have, in the meantime, also just the fourth Nexus. So, Classic really is building up the big macro game. Really just using the Reaver drops here to build up his economy and... yeah, to force almost like a reaction out of the Terran. I don't really know if Cure can just let this slide. Can Cure really just sit on 3 bases of his own and let Protoss have the entire side of the map? I mean, the problem with Terran Mech, right, is this is like the slightly more mobile version of it, but usually this is not an army that goes for big timing attacks. It is certainly a possibility, but more often than not, we see the Terran Mech army used as like a death ball type of approach. Banshees, though, still going around the site. With 3 Banshees, you can quite easily snipe those workers. Photon Cannon also coming up. And we already have shield batteries set up too, but obviously if your units get one shot, it doesn't really do much good for you. Blue Flame upgrade coming up. A Raven also on the production tab. We already did have Psystorm done, which is going to be very nice to add into the mix, because so far we have learned that Psystorm, at least in StarCraft 2, it deals a lot of damage, but in Brood War, the damage is even more ridiculous. Dragoon's waiting. He knows that the units are here. At this point, though, Classic's economy is looking real nice. We're once more going back in for a little bit of additional damage. He could really scan. Get a bit more high ground vision a bit more easily. Or maybe just park a unit over here in the dead space. I mean, a Viking would not be a luxury now, because Classic really is making this quite an annoying style to play against. Okay, now, while both players are harassing each other quite effectively... Now, this would be big. Okay, decides to go for the Archon Morph. It is very evident that this will likely result in a very large clash between the players before too long. At the very least, we seem to be heading in that direction. The supply counts are dead even. Worker counts are pretty much even. We've got ourselves the upgrade count that is also very reminiscent of one another. So we'll have to see a clash between the two armies that will likely decide the rest of the game. And that may just be coming up right now. Storm And splash damage here in general from both players is going to be big. But I think the Psy Storm especially is something to pay attention to, although a bunch of the High Templar did end up going down. No luxury of the energy recharge. Scarab's trying to connect. I wouldn't mind seeing an anti-armor missile being used here by Cure as well, but honestly, this Terran mech army is looking dangerous. There's a Storm together with the Scarabs from those Reavers being shot out, but Cure is making this Terran mech army look pretty insane. As long as he doesn't walk into the splash damage, I think he can just keep dancing back and forth. And Reaver drops, while they were reasonably successful, do not seem to be much here against this type of Terran mech army. An uncommon unit composition in StarCraft 2 seems to be phenomenal when you're facing off against a StarCraft 1 Protoss. And just like that, Cure just wiped the floor with the entire army, and he is smelling blood in the water right now. He will be pushing through this. I was a little bit concerned earlier that he was playing this too passively, but 3 bases is apparently all you really need. We do have the Kydarian Amulet coming up. We do have more and more high-level, high-tier units coming up as well for Protoss, but the problem is, yeah, he's got a huge Terran Death Ball inside of his main. Next up, we find ourselves on a map called Radon. Not a map that I am personally familiar with, but it's nice to go ahead and have a look. Now, for this particular tournament, we did have some of the... maybe some of the more well-known names signing up, although obviously everybody that's deep into the StarCraft 2 scene will be very familiar with Classic and Cure, but some of the absolute fan favorites, like for example Clem, like for example MaxPex, also decided to participate. And apparently, according to Hyper1, Cyril showed up in the in-game chat in the middle of the finals and asked if he could play in the tournament. Not the best timing to go ahead and do so. He's like, wait a second. There's like a $7,000 first place prize. Coach, tag me in. Very curious, right? So, I never really know exactly what to make of that. So, for a lot of StarCraft players, they see that a tournament like this is going on, right? They're very good at StarCraft 2, so they decide, you know what, let's just give it a shot. See how it goes. I would not be surprised at all if somebody like Cyril shows up and he's actually extremely competent and he's been secretly practicing over the course of several weeks already, or he is playing it for literally the first time and has never seen any of the units from StarCraft 1 before. I feel like it's either of the two. Not entirely sure which version you would get, but I mean, as long as the tournaments are going on, obviously the players will get better over time as well. Now, so far, in that first game, honestly, that was a landslide victory for Cure. Classic clearly did not have an answer against that maxed out Terran Death Ball is effectively what it was. One of the big problems, of course, that Classic ran into is that he just lost all of his High Templar to those Banshees a little bit before that big engagement ended up taking place, right? So, nice harassment there by Cure, but it did seem that across the board, Cyclones were pretty darn good when the opponent doesn't have access to Immortals at the very least. Maybe he could have gone Carriers? I don't know. Technically a possibility, but I'm not exactly sure. Oh, by the way, I did end up getting a sound effect added to my soundboard. A very important one now that we have Brood War Terran. Are we gonna build it? Cure! Do we? No, it's another factory. He wants to play Terran Mech again. I thought maybe we could get the Academy going. Maybe I'll have use for that sound effect later. I did ask, by the way. Apparently it is a replay limitation to be able to add the Terran Academy sound effect to the actual replay files, which is a little bit of a shame. I would love to have the good old Terran Academy every time that I click it, but apparently that is not an option. Okay, so it is going to be Terran Mech once more right here for Cure. What in the meantime is happening on the other side of the map? Well, the Natural is being overwhelmed by a single Vulture. Cure really is very aware of what he needs to be doing. Yeah, he's moving around with so much confidence. Already getting 5 workers worth of damage for a single Vulture is not bad whatsoever. I'm assuming we're gonna, there we go into the Spider Mine Research 2. We will probably get the speed upgrade for the Vultures. Obviously for Terran Mech and StarCraft 1, you do also need to research Siege Mode. So that will be very likely something that's coming up in just a moment. But it does mean that Classic gets a little bit of time here to just play the defensive game. So Robo Facility here coming up for him. Obviously, Immortals here are going to be a great choice. Again, not something that you have in StarCraft 1. So how does it function against Siege Tanks and all the rest of it in StarCraft Brood War? I'm not entirely sure. If you want to go Immortals, at the very least, it would be a very formidable choice. Energy regen right over there. The recharge used on the Sentry. Hallucinated Phoenix will be flying on over towards the bottom right. And here's a nice little hit squad of Vultures. Damn, Jimmy. Are those Vulture bikes? These guys are T-posing, by the way, while they're driving around. Have you ever noticed? The elbows of these lads on the motorbikes are kind of nuts. Now, there is a Sentry, and I think we may very well... Really? I thought we were going to use it to force field all of this stuff out. Problem is, of course, those spider mines, right? Super annoying. Now, suddenly, you can't really leave the base anymore. And Cure is just... Dude, Cure is very aggressive and certainly familiar with what he needs to do. I did cast a Cure game not too long ago, and he was certainly not bad, but I feel like he's been putting in the work. The man's come up with some timing attacks and some strategies that seem to be hard to stop. This is kind of nuts. I mean, it's just mass Vulture, really. I mean, I don't want to disregard Jimmy and his friends, but these Vultures have been putting in some work. And look at that, a couple of spider mines as well to rub some more salt in the wound. Maybe Classic could have microed it a little bit differently. But either way, 16 probes end up going down. 21 right now in total. Obviously, that wasn't a free set of, well, units right there for Terran. Observer is leading the charge, so at the very least, Classic is going to be able to get rid of some of those units. Maybe, honestly, it is still doable. He did wall himself in fully over here in the natural, but there is no siege mode yet. A siege tank is coming, but maybe those stalkers here, and they do have blink, maybe the stalkers can actually put in a little bit of work. Slow warpins in the meantime at home as well. Let's see. Yeah, he's going to be able to blink straight into the main base here. He's just checking. Machine Shop might actually be a target. Stalkers get warped in too, and what was looking like an easy win for Cure may actually turn out to be a bit of a disaster. Siege tank without siege mode. I mean, it finished just now. Oh my lord, that spider mine got so much damage done. He's looking for an angle. He really wants to get the siege tank, but another spider mine connects. And while ultimately the siege tank dies, so did, well, quite literally the entirety of the Protoss army. So GG gets called. Cure gets a quick 2-0 win. Next up, we find ourselves on the map that is dedicated to everybody's favorite Dutch artist. We find ourselves on Vermier. I still don't know if that's the actual reason why is the word Vermier used for anything else? I know it's the last name of a well-known Dutch artist, but a little bit odd. I mean, we could be adding many, many classical artists to StarCraft map names. I wouldn't mind it. Let's get Van Gogh. Okay, none of this Van Gogh stuff. Van Gogh. His name is Vincent van Gogh. Anyways, maybe Vermeer is a little bit easier to pronounce. Either way, this map has been pretty standard. It's a 4-player map. So that, of course, does spice things up just a little bit. But across the board, this really isn't that crazy. I'm looking forward to the Leonardo da Vinci map. I mean, honestly, not a bad idea. I don't really mind it. Gotta say, by the way, whoever, I guess, like, remade all of the maps from their StarCraft 1 counterparts to StarCraft 2, they've done a phenomenal job. They're really nice. They're really good. I'm not really too familiar with the in-depth look or all of the details of the Brood War maps, but the maps look fantastic, and they certainly do remind me of StarCraft 1, right? Which is ultimately what they're trying to do. But they look a little bit different. Like, visually, I feel like the cores here are a little bit more muted. Obviously, we've got those mineral fields as well. Visually, it's very StarCraft 1-y in my mind, but they still work out really nicely as well in these matches. All right, let's see. Cross Scout right here for Cure. By the way, the music in the background. Can we bump it up? Played this at my funeral. and my wedding. I hopefully heard this as well. Actually, no. When I was born in 92. So I'm assuming this song wasn't really composed yet. But either way, absolute banger. I would prefer it, if I ever get married, I would prefer it to be played at my wedding first and then my funeral in like the year 2280 or so. I feel like that's about that's a reasonable goal. It's a bit weird if you play it at my funeral first, although maybe we'll get to the technology where I can actually like transplant my brain into another vessel. I don't know. Either way, we're gonna go into the good old ranged upgrade again here for the Dragoons, but this is a different build here from Classic. So Classic, of course, going for the Reaver drop in game number 1, decides to mix it up here with a double gate opener. Are we still gonna go Robo? He was thinking about adding it into the mix. Yeah, he decides to go for one right over here on the low ground instead. Reaper is trying to find a bit of an angle. By the way, the Dragoons do have like a rotating, like I'm just wondering what that quadruple wiener at the bottom of their their hull is. Why is it rotating? Why does it look like that? Is this how Protoss reproduces? I don't know, man. But let me just say that Dragoons do look excited about existing. Anyways, they're gonna get their ranged upgrade here in just a moment. Maybe it's a gyroscope? Why would you put the gyroscope at the bottom, though? I think they fire out of the top of their thing, don't they? Let's actually study this as the units do go across. There is no way that they fire from their orbiting quadruple banana solution. There's no way. I think they're gonna back up, though. Let's see. No, they shoot out of their eyeball. They shoot out of the thing at the top. So I don't know why the thing at the bottom is a thing. Maybe it allows them to lock in, you know? Like when you're just about to fire, you dig your quadruple banana into the ground and then suddenly you're slightly more stable. Anyway. Shield batteries, by the way, I did test this out. They do auto-heal. So in StarCraft Brood War, I don't believe they behave like that. So that's why we also see the shield batteries over here set up in the way that they are. But they do automatically heal units that need their shields regenerated. So that's why we see some very StarCraft 2-esque behavior over here. As far as I know, you don't plant your shield batteries like that in Brood War. Either way, Cure is going to sacrifice Jimmy here, or at the very least use Jimmy as a bait to try and get those Dragoons. Oh, yeah, no, it worked. To get those Dragoons within range of the siege tanks. I can imagine some of the, so obviously they made a lot of the StarCraft 2 designs, right? Based on the Brood War counterparts. And I guess somebody looked at the pixels from the StarCraft 1 sprite and decided, you know what? I guess that's what it was supposed to be. I'm not sure exactly if this particular skin was made by Blizzard. It may very well be. And if that's the case, it was likely made before StarCraft 1 Remastered came out. So this may be just an artist's interpretation of the sprites that were made in like 1998. Or I guess before that, because that's when the game launched. Anyways, very different approach, right? This time around here for Classic. So we're not gonna deal with any of that Reaver drop shenanigans anymore. We are just going to go... Are we gonna get our units stuck? I feel like this High Templar is stuck. I think we're just about to witness the absolute classic atrocity when this High Templar spawns. We'll have to keep an eye out in just a moment. For now, though, this is just a very conventional start here for Cure. He does have a third command center, but he's probably aiming for something similar as in the first game, although obviously not with Terran Mech. Yeah, he's stuck. There's no way. Ah, Classic! Classic, come on, man! No warp gates available in this game. You just have to produce them like you would a barracks, and apparently we are gonna get the units stuck. Now this one is actually stuck. I've seen videos on the internet of people that claim that they're stuck, but they really aren't. This one actually can't go anywhere, although if a shuttle comes close, At the very least, that will make life a little bit easier. But let's see if this bio drop can work out. He might even notice now that the High Templar there, because he's not likely to really look at those gateways again. He may very well notice that the High Templar isn't... Oh my god. Yeah, he decides to just go after his own Citadel of Adun. So the Citadel of Adun is the structure that allows him the, for example, the charge upgrade on the Zealots. Or I guess the Zealot leg enhancement would be more appropriate. He's already made the Templar Archive, so he doesn't really need it anymore. And just like that, indeed. The High Templar have been freed. Medevac drops straight towards the main base. Cure doesn't know what's waiting. Likewise, Classic also doesn't see this. The scan may just tell him a couple seconds ahead of time that something big is happening, and just at that point, Classic was also ready to go across the map for a push of his own. Main Nexus is certainly going to fall. Relatively small commitment right here by Cure, who, by the way, is not really focusing much on, like, his infantry upgrades. There are some big storms going down. I'm surprised we even still hear him, man. He's just blanketing all of these Terran bio units with storm now. Why don't we just back up? Oh my god, he's actually doing a decent job just fighting it all out, but should we really be giving up 4 medevacs worth of units like this? Obviously, he got some good value, but I kind of feel like he diminished some of the value that he gained. Alright. Main Nexus is going to be rebuilt. Now, what I was going to say is that Cure only has the +1 infantry attacks, so it's just the single upgrade there from the engineering bay. He is instead optimizing in Ghost production. So far, Classic really is getting stomped. I hope this finals is going to turn out to be a little bit more competitive than thus far, because Cure is just making Classic look like a bit of a fool. He's not even doing the craziest stuff, right? I can imagine that maybe the Vulture all-in from the previous game was something that Classic hadn't really seen before, but he can hardly be surprised by seeing especially this build right over here. Same for the Cyclone push from the first game. I mean, maybe it's uncommon, but it's not something you can't prepare for. Well, let's see. No feedback available, of course, to try and get rid of those units. Again, siege tanks are already set up at home, and obviously the Ghost EMP ability is going to be phenomenal against those clumped up troops. Everybody's allowed to have an off day, right? But this would be a bad timing to have one of those for Classic. He did do very well in the other tournament that I recently casted. Without spoiling it too much. Let's just say that he, okay, well, I can't really say that without spoiling it, he won the event. So, you know, not a spoiler, but he beat everybody. All right, oh my lord! That was the biggest EMP I've seen in a while. Oh, yeah, this is game over, man. Not a chance here. Classic, I think we need to go back to the drawing board. Maybe take a couple of minutes and chill. Because you are getting dumpstered, my friend. And that means we find ourselves on match point on a map called Pylon. That'll be the very first structure that Classic has to produce as well. Coincidence? I think not. Honestly, so far, it's not that Classic is... I think Cure is playing some very fun strategies, right? And he clearly knows what he's doing. But I also feel like Classic has been making some very uncharacteristic errors. We've seen him do this sort of thing as well in the past, where I don't know exactly what it is. It almost looks like a bit of a mental block to me. I'm sure everybody's experienced this when you try to get better at a video game or literally anything in life. Sometimes things just don't work out. And when you're forced to do more of the same thing that same day, it just snowballs out of control. That previous game was probably the worst we have seen Classic play thus far. And I don't mean that with real disrespect. It was just very messy. Very, very sloppy. So, if you're going to play against Cure, you have to bring your A game. Cure, by the way, for a long time, at least in StarCraft 2, was considered to be the #1 Terran versus Protoss player in the entire world. Cure has always been a bit of a TVP specialist. Mostly held back, I suppose, by his TVZ. But lately, I mean, Again, we've seen him compete against the absolute best of the best. His Terran vs. Zerg has become very solid as well. That series he played against Shin recently comes to mind, where he ended up winning 3-0, and he did so with Terran Mech. He played Terran Bio. He did a Reaper all-in. Kjær really has got a very wide range in his playstyles, and that's what makes him very scary in TVP. But now he's also been employing it against Protoss. Well, what can we do here with StarCraft 1? So we have the StarCraft 1 Terran units again. Obviously, in that previous game, in the second game of the series, he ended up playing a Vulture all-in. Vultures are cool, but it did mean that there was no academy. And I would like to see some of those Terran units go to school. Factory coming up right now on the back of this. We have a safety bunker as well at the front. And okay, Classic is flipping the script. We're gonna go for a Stargate opener. Now, I don't really know exactly. So I'm thinking, right? How do mass phoenixes play out in this particular matchup when you're going up against a StarCraft 1 Protoss? Mass Phoenix into charge slots or Mass Phoenix into Colossi. Not the currently most popular strategy in StarCraft 2, but certainly a very viable one. It's just that Stalkers have become the meta. Doesn't mean that those builds are bad. I would like to see something like that. Alternatively, yeah, Oracle is not a bad idea either. Obviously, you don't have the option to like plant a Widow Mine out of line of sight. Obviously, Kjær is not going to have a Cyclone available to put down, and I mean, he may end up in one of those weird positions where he just simply doesn't have any anti-air at all. He is going into an armory right now, so yeah, he's once more playing Terran Mech here. Going into the good old Spider Mine research, but he has no anti-air. The energy recharge ability, of course, does make this build very, very scary. 3.5 minutes in, 157 energy on an Oracle. This lad over here can shoot lasers for days. Now we do have, okay, we do have a Goliath added into the mix right now for Kjær. Let's see. He is going to rally it perfectly too. Although I think he is a little bit late to the party. Question is, how many SCVs will he lose? Apparently you need to 3-shot the workers, just like in StarCraft. Ooh, okay, clumping them together. I mean, I feel like we should have gone for the kills. Little bit feisty there. I think he could have had more than just those two, if I'm being honest with you. All right, here we go again, though. Look at these lads. T-posing on their motorcycles. Motorcycles, by the way, are hovering above the ground. So they're not really gonna experience a lot of problems from those mines. Ooh. Apparently, if you're fast enough, you can snipe them with Stalkers as well. Oracle is going to be using its Revelation ability. Fair enough. He did leave a little present behind in the mineral line too. But the Oracles will be making short work of all of this. Revelation there. Oh, he missed one. Oh, no. If you transfer a whole... Oh, my God. If you transfer a clump of workers here into the spider mine, that would be... Oh, no. That would be a little bit sad. I think it's only going to be one because they will be spreading out. Actually, no, of course not. The probes have that hover state. In the past, they didn't do this in StarCraft Evolution. But spider mines only latch onto units that have their feet firmly planted on the ground. They used to trigger as well against probes in the earlier stages of the mod, but they added this, well, at least in my mind, recently, although it may be a year ago. So not an issue. We do see a whole lot of spider mines, though, set up all around the map. And while Kjær managed to already win the game in that second match of this series, he's going to be forced to play a little bit of a longer one this time around. So, Engineering Bay coming up. Starport as well. So in case, by the way, you're unfamiliar with the behavior, spider mines in StarCraft 1 only can trigger by units that have their feet on the ground, quite literally. So there's a bunch of units that have a hover state. We don't really use hover states in StarCraft 2, but when you think about it, units like Archons, all of the workers, units like, for example, the High Templar as well, they all hover slightly above the ground, and they're not quite flying units. Spider Mine is going to get sniped. But it is something to, yeah, pay attention to. Either way, Command Center here itself now in a little bit of trouble. A lot of the Terran units will have to be pulled from the main base and the natural to try and pull this away, or push this away. Should be able to get that job done. Siege tank research is also going to be coming up here. And we do have... Ah! I can almost play it! Can I play it already, please? Okay, I'm just gonna do it. That took me about half an hour to set up, okay? Please appreciate it. It was not worth it. So he's spreading spider mines everywhere he can. Now, of course, vultures don't have an infinite amount of spider mines. I'll just keep playing the sound effect. How about that? Ooh, they can also just, yeah, blink past it, though. This is a little bit sketchy. A load of spider mines will try to burrow right next to all of this. Okay, Stasis Ward is annoying. Stalkers, though, will try and, okay, blink across this little crevice. It's an absolute mess. But he does get the job done. I think I need to make the sound effect louder. Let me see if I can increase the volume of it. Here we go. Volume to 200%. Yes, dude. That's what we need. Maybe the developers of the mod can't add it to the replay files, but I can play it manually. Alright, so we are going to be going for all of the Terran mech upgrades. Goliaths are going to get their iconic missiles here in just a moment. Vulture still running around the map trying to set up a little bit of counter pressure, but Classic is putting in some work now. I feel like for the first time, he's moving around the map very confidently. Game number 1, I guess, with the Vulture drops as well, looked pretty darn good initially. Oh my god, don't walk into the spider mines. Ah, what a mess. What a mess. Didn't even kill the siege tank. Okay. Oh, yeah, he dives in with the Oracle to finish the job, but then dies? Ugh. An absolute mess. But ultimately, I guess not the worst bit of harassment. It's just that he lost a lot of very valuable units. A Scythe Storm at this point is done as well for the High Templar. So at the very least, that will be a nice thing to do. Music playing, by the way, in the background is pretty sweet. So a lot of the music that we have available in StarCraft 2 is not added to the multiplayer version of the game. So from what I understand, they never really bothered updating the music that plays in multiplayer for like the last decade of development. But they did make new music tracks. For example, with the Nova Coverdubs. And in this particular mod, I believe it was Avex, one of the developers, added it to the actual, well, game mode. So these are official StarCraft 2 music files. And obviously we've heard some StarCraft 1 as well. But they're all mixed and matched together in this particular mod. And we get a little bit more music variety. Now, what in the world is this Prism doing? Prism just flew by? What? What was that, Classic? Classic was sightseeing there. Classic is making some really unconventional blunders. I think he's still fine just because look at the mini-map. He's expanding every which way, and he is playing an awful lot of like, almost like Protoss mech here with robo production and a whole lot of spellcasters. He's got an insane amount of economy too. But he is very much so playing Protoss like you would Zerg here. He's just throwing away units, hoping for the best. More and more upgrades coming up. Science facility here. Adding more and more into the mix. We've seen the strength of the science vessels in some of the previous series. Specifically, though, a phenomenal unit, of course, against the Zerg. Irradiate especially, just nuts. Bunch of spider mines right there actually working against Protoss. But also against the Terran. Okay, so Cure finally sets up the 4th command center. Clearly, right, his goal again is to play the big, well, the Death Bowl approach. Problem is, soon there will be a fleet beacon done. And we've already got ourselves a bunch of Stargates. I don't really know exactly what this type of Terran army does against, for example, Tempests. Not usually their enemy in StarCraft Brood War, of course, but certainly something that needs to be taken into consideration here. Carriers as well, likewise, right? Carriers also a really, really scary unit, especially if you can get the upgrades going. Despite the fact that Classic has been mining with 93 workers, he doesn't actually have that much money. I do love the way that vultures work, though. It's so much fun. Oh, no way, dude. One spider mine killing 2 High Templar just like that. Classic really making quite a few sloppy errors throughout this series. But, I mean, he still has a good army, right? And his economy is still nuts. So, if we look right here at the resources lost, yeah, especially the gas is the real issue. Mineral losses are negligible for Protoss with this much eco, but a whole lot of gas lost like that is painful. He's gonna try and just blink through all of this. There are a bunch of Immortals at the front, but the siege tanks certainly will be able to plow their way through a lot of these clumped up Protoss units too. Sometimes the better pathing can make life a little bit harder, just because the units will clump up a little bit more too. Either way, a mass of Zealots is waiting off to the side. Stargate number 3 coming up. We do already have the +1 arrow weapons researching. Double upgrades as well in the Forge. Yeah, so Classic really taking a page out of the Zerg book here. Just throw stuff at them until they die. That's effectively the strat we're going for. Cure is doing the slowest of slow expansions ever. Oh, yo, don't commit with the attack. Oh, yo, okay. Cure is doing the slowest of slow pushes ever. Basically just sprinkling spider mines wherever he sees fit. Oh my god, man. That Protoss army just got deleted. Siege tanks and mines are not to be underestimated. Now, of course, you can add the shield as well. That's where the science vessels are really nice. You can add shields as well to the units that basically just allow them to tank more damage. And Classic is trying his best to do a better job in this game, and at the very least he managed to get the game to go longer. But in every single one of those isolated fights, he is just getting destroyed. He needs better vision. Now, he had oracles, but he YOLO'd those in. He does have a Robo Bay, but he never got any of the upgrades for it. I wouldn't mind seeing the prism speed, the observer speed, that sort of thing, just to make the defense a little bit more straightforward. Cure is slowly taking control of his side of the map, but it's a very slow game plan. Okay, now we do have Skytos cooking up. The mothership is going to be joining in just a moment. Immortal production is doubled down to as well, so let's see how that goes. So far, I haven't been too impressed by the Protoss ground units, but maybe Mama can change the tide of battle. There she is. She's looking beautiful today. Let me just say. You look incredible, Mama. And I think maybe your time warp is needed. Maybe the cloaking field could also be quite nice, although obviously there are ways for... No. Alright, I thought I was a misread immortal. Damage values, by the way, in this game mode are different. We've already noticed that with very basic units, like, for example, the Marines. But likewise as well, the siege tanks, obviously with the way that armor types work out in this game as well. The siege tanks are also not to be underestimated. But it looks like Cure has decided that now is the time to strike. He's been sitting back for about 15 minutes, but he's built all of this. Now, some of the siege tanks, for some reason, are going off the other side. Is that a misplay here from Cure? I think so. He probably expected the army to go through the choke point. But this tight little area on Pylon is making that all a little bit messy. He will be able to reproduce that pretty quickly. In the meantime, it looks like Mama decided to sacrifice herself for a mass recall into the main base of the Terran. Terran, in the meantime, is also working away at some of those Protoss expansions, though. But what about the main? Classic has still got way more resources available, and he is now on top of the production. Yeah, and that's the real problem here for Cure. Cure has resources too to remax with, but he needs to make new machine shops and needs to actually land those structures in order to be able to do so. Now, it wouldn't be a luxury to recall out of here soon, Classic. I don't think you can fight that entire Terran Death Bowl. Can we please recall? Can we please recall? Does he not have it available? I'm gonna check on a Nexus. No, he does. I think he's just maximizing damage. Yeah. Alright, we do recall. Starting to get a little bit concerned there. 30 SCVs go down. In the meantime, Protoss still pushing as well with reinforcing units over at that third base. Mama 2.0 coming up. She's not a replacement, but we won't see the old Mama ship anymore. It's a little bit sad. And I think Classic has actually managed to get the job done here now. I mean, he still obviously needs to address this army, and that has me a little bit concerned. I'm not sure exactly how good Goliaths are when it comes to fighting, for example, carriers here, or for example, Tempests. Are they going to be within range? I'm guessing they are, at least when it comes to fighting the carriers, right? But seems like a bit of a no-brainer to me to at the very least give Tempest a try, but Classic seems to be extremely confident that this is the way to go, sacrificing unit after unit after unit, and it's expensive, it's bloody, but I think it'll be good enough. I mean, he's got 97 workers worth of income. There's about 0% chance that he actually has all of those units effectively mining, because he doesn't have that many mineral lines available right now. New, base is just finished up. Carriers, by the way, are now coming up. Okay. Yeah, against these siege tanks, the Immortals look awfully mortal. They're also a little bit more mobile, though. Okay. Well, Classic is overwhelming his opponent. It's messy. It's been kind of dirty. But Cure decided to give him all the wiggle room in the world. And while that worked out for him in one of the previous games when he was playing with the StarCraft 2 Terran, in this particular match, it does not seem to be working out nearly as nicely. His supply count is now half of that of Classic, which is just not going to be good enough. And while I still don't think this is the best game that Classic has ever played, it's still been rather sloppy across the board. I think he just has the numbers. And ultimately, yeah, StarCraft 2 is very much so a numbers game. He's maxed with a big bank, whereas Cure is sitting at 70 supply. And unable to even get close to maxing out. Multitasking here is still pretty solid, though. The man in the missile turret is also going to get shut down. And while many, many zealots, immortals, stalkers, and all the rest of it have died to accomplish the job, Cure decides to tap out, and that means that Classic does get a point on the board. Alrighty, next up, we find ourselves on the map Oceanborn. Classic is back to playing the StarCraft 1 Protoss, and of course that means that Cure is back to his beloved StarCraft 2 Terran. This is Jimmy. Oh wait, no, that's in StarCraft Brood War. Never mind. This could still be Jimmy though, I guess. Remember that haircut that Raynor had in StarCraft 1? It was very different all of a sudden in StarCraft 2. I guess he let his hair grow out over the course of the decade or so. Yeah, he also became an alcoholic. Yeah, I don't know. Remember his first act in the Wings of Liberty campaign where he like shot a television? Who shoots a television? That's crazy. Just because you're upset at the news? Oh well. Alright. Very sane behavior there by our Terran hero. Barracks coming up right now, or factory rather coming up after the barracks. We are going to be going into Tech Lab, so I would imagine we will be adding on Cyclones again. I mean, the Cyclone build in the first game of this particular Grand Finals worked out really, really nicely. And Classic really didn't seem to have an answer to it. Now, we are once more lining up much the same build as we did in game number 1. We are going a robo support bay. We are building a shuttle. And that means we are going fishing with reavers. A little bit of a dance over here at the front. Obviously an easy repair right here for Cure, but likewise as well, those shields will regen. We're going to be adding on a good old Reaver indeed, and once more, Gravitic Drive is researching in the support bay. Observatory on the back of this too. Yeah, this build makes a lot of sense to me. You can use it defensively, but you can use it brilliantly as well offensively. Plus, it's just a lot of fun to watch. Maybe that's the most important thing. It also just seems really fun to play. But of course, you never really know exactly how much damage a Reaver is going to do. I feel like that's what makes Reaver so exciting. At the very least as a fan, I'm sure it's very frustrating for Classic. But sometimes it's the type of unit that can destroy a mineral line in about half a second. And then other times it shoots a similar missile and it doesn't deal any damage whatsoever. So, looks like we have Battle Mech again for Cure. Much like we did in game number 1. And then Classic is going for the exact same build too. Now, in that particular game, of course, Classic got destroyed. Gravitic Drive is done right now. There is a Dragoon in the mix too. Where are we dropping it? Right over here? Let's see. Oh no, he dropped the other unit first! Oh my lord! How did you travel that far? Okay. Could have been a problem. Could have been an issue. Okay. Bit of a mess. Yeah, bit of a mess. 4 SCVs only. I wonder what this would have been like if he ended up dropping the Reaver first. He kind of spoiled the surprise a little bit there by showing up with a Dragoon first. Not exactly sure why. I mean, the Dragoon did nothing anyways. Probably also just some experimentation, right? Look at that unit, though. Ugh. It's kind of gross, isn't it? Yeah, ugh. 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 Why did the creator Protoss units not give me legs? Why do I have to pull myself forward like that? Very quick Stargate this time around for Classic, so that is certainly a switch up. Banshee's going in around the site, but already Dragoons are waiting. Here we go. The Froom Froom shuttle, ready to go in. Let's shoot some more of those Scarabs around. Problem is, it takes 2 to actually kill one of the Cyclones. Not quite optimized damage there from Classic, but still, he is finding himself in a decent position now. I'm very curious to see what he wants to do with the Stargates. Obviously, he's got access to Goliaths. Not a bad idea. Ooh, Scouts! Wait, he started one and then canceled one. So Scouts are considered to be the absolute worst unit in StarCraft Brood War. However, I have been told that in this particular mod, they are busted. People have been posting, at least in the comments section. I've read about it on the Discord as well. By the way, you should go join my Discord, discord.gg/lowcodetv. There's a link in every video description as well. Either way, people have been telling me that apparently Scouts in this game mode are actually busted. And that none of the StarCraft 2 and StarCraft 1 players test them out because nobody ever plays it. Instead, we're going to be going into the good old carriers here. Okay. Some speed Banshees going around the site. Some all-army hotkey chasing here, judging by the shuttle joining in as well on the hunt. 3 observers joined together. Now, this is, of course, one of the iconic units in StarCraft 1. But they can also be very hit or miss. Now, if I'm not mistaken, in StarCraft 1, Terran versus Protoss, when Terran does play mech, it is all about trying to get the carriers out before Terran reaches their critical mass. And I think Classic is probably memorizing the same thing or remembering the same thing here. As he is going to try and get those carriers out. I'm not sure how the interaction works, though, when you have Cyclones, for example. But I can imagine that carriers are not going to be a bad choice. I would imagine you want to sit back with these units for at least a little bit. There's a bunch of upgrades, by the way. Like, for example, the ability to unlock more than just 4 interceptors. We certainly should be getting that upgrade here in just a moment. My main concern is that the Cyclones are going to lock on and will just absolutely destroy every single one of these flying bananas. Only time will tell. Banshee's going in around the side again. The Banshee really do, yeah, they really do look like the more agile unit, right? If you look at any of those engagements, they just look like the more modern equivalent of a lot of the Brood War stuff. Are you debate, bro? Are you just sitting there waiting for Terran units to walk up the ramp? We're on Oceanborn, by the way, a map that we haven't seen in StarCraft 2 in years. It is nice. Raven production, by the way, did begin. So, Ravens have a bunch of different abilities. Like, for example, the Interference Matrix. I would imagine if we're gonna mass Ravens, that's the plan. So, mass Interference Matrix onto the carriers, and then maybe try to drive the Cyclones underneath for the lock-on? I'm just thinking out loud here. It seems like an interesting strat. I don't know if it's a good one, but you know what? I'm down for interesting. Templar Archives coming up. Stargate number 3 is here too. We should really double down on some of those air weapon researches, though, because the Cybercore is waiting. It's available. The upgrades are not cheap, but I don't think it's a bad call. Kydarian Amulet queued up here as well for Classic. That's going to give his High Templar enough energy to spawn with Storm. But obviously, you do need to research Storm as well. He did, by the way, not get the carrier upgrades. They didn't remove that, did they? There's no way. No, that's it. That's got to be it right here. This is the upgrade that should, at the very least, allow the carriers to get up to 8 interceptor ships. A lot of the icons are slightly different, but I think that's got to be what it is. Either way, for now, he only has... I mean, only. He has 6 carriers, and he's got 21 interceptor ships right now. It is important to get as many of those as you can. Now, this is a very slow-moving army, though, and there go the interceptors indeed. Already, though, we see the interference matrices, and exactly what I thought was going to be the game plan is what Cure goes for. He is smelling blood in the water right now. This Protoss army was going to destroy him a few moments down the line, but he hits right when the iron is hot. Perfect opportunity here for Cure to attack. And Cure is able to overwhelm all of these very expensive Protoss units. That being said, the carriers are still around. Yeah, we did see 3 of them going down. Some of them here are at low HP, but they're still available. It's actually a little bit awkward. When the interceptors apparently are already out, they can continue dealing damage, but then the interference matrix connects and shuts down the carrier, and some of them return immediately, but not all of them do. 32 workers, 37 workers, make it 40 here in just a moment. Everything's dying, but the majority of the anti-air here has now disappeared. So while this has been a disaster, Classic is still alive. Sonic Storm is coming up. We do have 0 High Templar remaining after that little debacle, but he's going to try and see if he can push through. He does indeed now have double the amount of interceptors. That helps a lot. And this might just be one of those pushes that can deal very significant amounts of damage, but obviously Classic needs to be careful. As long as he keeps these carriers over dead space, he might just be able to keep a lot of them alive and make it difficult for the opponent to get close to it. Interceptors, though, need to be targeting down whatever they can. Mass command center repair is painful. Here go the Hellions. What about the push? Oh, okay. Not bad. Scarabs dealing quite a bit of damage. Bunch of the Zealots also joining in. Carriers, in the meantime, go around the site. Yeah, in a straight-up engagement, the Cyclones do win. But Classic is no longer taking straight-up engagements. He just killed 16 SCVs. He's killing a command center, too. I don't hate it. Obviously, this is still an atrocious situation for Classic. But Skytos is still Skytos. And you can never count a man with maxed out Skytos out, okay? He's got a lot of carriers. He's got Storm. It is not the end of the world. Cloak Benches, in the meantime, do swoop back around. It's an odd unit composition, but it certainly packs a punch. Finally, the +2 air weapons research begins. It is a massive power spike, especially for carriers, because every single one of those interceptors benefits from it. But this is the combo, yeah, that Cure is hoping for. Interference Matrix, scan, lock on with the carriers. But look at this army, though. This Protoss army is big. Storm also really does make life way easier. Okay, we do see an anti-armor missile. That's nice and all. Yeah, I don't think it's as big of a disaster here for Classic as it was just a few minutes ago. One thing I would really like to see here from Cure is a switch up towards Vikings. He's clearly not planning on that. His upgrades aren't really that phenomenal either. I think especially against carriers, you really want to get armor upgrades down. These Cyclones don't really benefit from attacking upgrades as it is, because the majority of their damage comes from the lock-on ability. So he's got the +2 ground attacks. Okay, this is an alternative choice, of course. Rather than Vikings, we can go into Thors, but Thors are expensive and it slows the entire game down a lot. Likewise as well, Ghost Academy added into the mix. So Cure, he's saying, okay, I'm just going to let you do whatever you like. I am planning on winning 5 minutes from now. Storms over here are good. Ooh, the Ravens fly very far forward. Interference matrices are down, and the armor missiles also do get thrown down, but I'm looking at this Terran army just slowly disappear. Cure making investments into a future that at this rate will never come. Really? Well, I would love to see that come into the mix. I believe that's the mind control ability, isn't it? We'll have to see if that is something that Classic is even going to be able to employ at all. Because I feel like this push over here has very real potential. Mind control research indeed is completing. It is the same icon. Here's what you do. You steal an SCV and then you start making Terran mech of your own. Thors and StarCraft 1 carriers. What do you do against it? Command centers are dying. 2 of them go down in the blink of an eye. You can tell that the +2 attack has kicked in for these flying units. We should definitely be going into the +3 attack as well. And while Classic kind of looked like it was down and out, honestly, it was looking like a 4-0 win for Cure. He was in a disastrous position in this game, but he is slowly making all of this work. This is not game over yet, but I am favoring this position for Classic significantly. I think Cure kind of got carried away a little bit. Stuck around on this ground-based army for a very long time. And now, yeah, all of these units are dying. No storms available. Carriers just using their gigantic banana bodies to soak up as much damage as they can. It's a mess with more and more troops coming in around the site. 4 Thors do show up on the ramp. Classic immediately remaxes, though. Uses 8 gateways to produce even more Dragoons. We did have a Ghost Academy earlier. I haven't seen a single one of those units being made. I think this may be the first time that Cure is really dealing with this level of army. Obviously, this is very much so unexplored territory for many of the pro gamers, right? So maybe Cure up until this point never had to transition away from the Battle Mech Death Ball. But it turns out that Protoss does have an answer. And much like StarCraft 1, Terran Mech, getting those carriers going is a very solid choice. Cure found himself stuck here on Terran Mech. Now, he does have all of those... Okay, he does have all of those Thors out, but I just don't think he's got the numbers. GG gets cold, and Classic escapes death by the skin of his teeth. Well, this is weird. I thought for a second I loaded up the wrong replay, because we're once again finding ourselves on a map called Vermier, which is where we previously already had played a game. And then I noticed the spawn locations being different, and I thought everything was messed up for just a moment. So, it turns out, this is a tournament with a prize pool of $14,500. It's a best of 7 grand finals, but the tournament only has 5 maps. So, since the score is 3-2, they ran out of maps, I assume, and the players just picked whatever? That is odd. That's not how we normally do StarCraft events. Especially when we're doing StarCraft 1 versus StarCraft 2. It would make a lot more sense to just use any of literally the hundreds of maps that we have. Okay. So that means we find ourselves on Vermeer once more. Now, it's a fine map. Why would you only do 5 maps, though, for a tournament? Maybe... I have seen this sort of thing happen in the past, when, like, the tournament is going really well, and on the final day, there's, like, a lot of viewers on the live stream or whatever, and the tournament organizer is like, you know what? The grand finals was supposed to be a best of 5. Let's just make it a best of 7 instead. And I don't know if that's the case in this particular one, but it is a little bit strange to have a best of 7 grand finals, but then only 5 maps in a map pool. I'm not sure. Either way, it's a Stargate build once again right here for Classic, which I do quite like. Worked out much better than what we saw him do so far in some of the previous games. Cure going into... Oh, sorry, where's my soundboard? Cure going into the good old Stimpeg research here inside of the Academy, as he's doing a triple Rex. Love the music, by the way. This is an actual banger. So this is official StarCraft music. Imagine having this in the game and not using it in multiplayer in 1v1. Ay, ay, ay. Be nice if Blizzard decided to go do something, eh? Seems like a bit of a no-brainer. One of the things, by the way, that I have noticed from the StarCraft 1 maps that really does grind my gears a little bit, and I know this is kind of a non-issue, but the main base has 9 mineral fields. The natural has 7. Why? Is this normal? 2, 4, 6, 7 over here on this base. 2, 4, 6, 7 on this one. 2, 4, 6, 7 on this one. I have seen some maps as well where the third has only 6 mineral fields. Either way, Cure, of course, still on match point. He has now been on match point for the last 2 maps already. Oh, Classic. Classic going for the Stasis Ward. Cure must have seen it. Yeah, Jimmy decided to use Stimpeg to run in. I don't know why he decided to use Stimpegs first. Second Stasis Ward over here, though. Cure sees it again. But this is buying time, and shield batteries are finishing now. Is this okay here for Classic? I think it's fine, right? Already so much time has been bought. At the very least, the Twilight Council can be attacked. Nah, well, you can repair that, but the Blink is certainly going to get denied. A ranged upgrade for the Marines coming up. But this was an important hold here for Classic, who's now going to town in the opponent's mineral line, by the way. 5 SCV kills just like that. Okay. Hey, Classic decided to wake up. I really didn't like the first, well, honestly, like the first 3.5 games that he played. I didn't really like the start of the previous game much either for him, to be honest, because it kind of felt like he was... Oh, why, Classic? How did we just all-army hotkey the Oracle over the Marines? That's like the one place where it shouldn't be. Waiting on the high ground is this Terran army. Slow reaction speed again from Classic. Okay, I was just leading myself into a compliment for Classic's control here in this game, but I think I should just not address it. Just don't talk about it. That way we don't have to address the negativity. Okay, +1 infantry attacks coming up. We've got ourselves the siege tank siege mode researching too. And we are certainly going to have to go back to the drawing board here as Terran. Classic really making some sloppy mistakes, man, throughout these games. Not that Cure is playing it perfectly, don't get me wrong. But the Protoss mistakes are always just a little bit more obvious, a little bit more apparent. Protoss really does, in general, get punished really hard for the all army hotkey. For what it's worth, Terran players use the all army hotkey all of the time. Same for Zerg. But for Protoss, it always becomes a little bit more obvious. I'm not exactly sure what research this is. We should pay attention to what shows up over on the right side of the screen when it's nearly finished. Is this just good old EMP? Science Facility Brood War. I think it's EMP, but has to be, right? So it has EMP Shockwave, Irradiate, and Titan Reactor. Yeah, there's no way this is Irradiate. There's no way this is Titan Reactor, which is an energy upgrade for the science vessel. So I think this has to be the EMP research. Makes sense. So this grants the science vessel the shockwave ability. The EMP shockwave, that is. It's going to appear on the right side of the screen. These icons are all a little bit different. Same for this. The infantry upgrades are also changed a little bit, and there it is, by the way, on the right side. So it is indeed the EMP shockwave research. Now, the scan here for Cure will reveal that indeed there is a third base. By the way, he is adding on fire bets. I really loved fire bets against Zerg. I thought they were phenomenal. We saw some really cool all-ins with fire bets, marines, and medics. I'm not so sure about fire bets, though, against Protoss. I guess you can make them work. Against, as we do have a storm drop in the meantime headed, but maybe against zealots? It is not a bad idea. There's, by the way, the energy upgrade, but let's see. Stormy boys have arrived. Oh, yeah, storm left, right, and center, man. Keep storming. The man won't stop. Bunch of marines die. 11 of those SCVs also did fall. By the way, I've been getting a lot of questions of people asking how they can go ahead and play this game mode too. If you are interested, if you go into StarCraft 2, which, by the way, you can download for free. If you go to the StarCraft 2 custom games section and you click on the melee maps, at the bottom it says create map with mod. And what you search for is SC2 or SC Evo complete. If you search for something, I think it's called SC Evo complete. Maybe there's like, it's something along those lines. But anyways, if you search for that, it will show up. You can go ahead and give all of this a shot yourself. This has been looking way better for Classic, though, as far as the storms go. Oh, feedbacks as well. Say goodbye to your EMPs. In the meantime, some of the units are trying to break in the natural. Siege tanks are in a wonderful position, though. Great movement here by Cure, who's now wedged himself right over here. Classic is going in for the surround. Does he have enough to clean this up? He decides to storm his way there. Now, he went in for a surround that wasn't a surround. It could have been a surround, but it wasn't. Fire bets in the meantime kill pylons. Reinforcing Terran units do get picked up. Immortal here together with an Archon has been target firing down the siege tanks. And while this is a bit of a mess, yeah, the Marines are still reigning supreme. Fire bets are doing surprisingly well, though, against these StarCraft 2 zealots. I didn't think they were gonna... Oh, okay, say goodbye to the Marines now. I didn't think they were gonna be that effective, is what I was going to say, but... Well, everything's good until they get stormed in the face. Okay. Fourth Nexus, in the meantime, now gets spotted as well. Cure keeps on finding those bases after they are fully saturated and GG gets called. That means we're going to game 7. It all comes down to this final game in this best of 7 series. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know how many games there were going to be in this finals. But I did not expect we would make our way to Game 7 after seeing the first handful of maps. Cure was just simply outplaying Classic significantly. Now though, Classic has won 3 maps back to back to back, and momentum in a series is a very real thing. We have seen this time and time again. There's a reason why reverse sweeps are actually possible, but it rarely happens in a best of 7. It is pretty much unheard of in a best of 7 match to win 4 games back to back to back to back. Well, let's see if Classic can get the job done. He is playing with the Brood War units again. He has now tried out a variety of builds. I'm assuming we'll go into a very quick Reaver drop again, judging off of all of this. Because there's no second gateway. And he's been a big fan of the Reaver drops. We are again, by the way, on Oceanborn. It's kind of driving me crazy how we can have a tournament like this and then not have 7 maps in the map pool. Actually nuts. Actually stupid. But anyways, Robo Facility right now coming up on the low ground. Obviously, big shout out to the tournament organizers, but I really don't understand how we can have a best of 7 grand finals and then have 5 maps in the map pool. What a weird concept. Triple command center opener here for Cure. Okay. Cure is risking it all now. Triple CC build. Let me tell you, this is a dangerous game that he is playing. We have seen that Dragoons have a difficult time breaking open the natural expansion. Mass repair is really good. Even against like 4 Dragoons, you can get away without siege tanks early on, it seems. You don't even really need Cyclones. Obviously, these units do not have access to blink, so they can't blink into the main. But what about this, though? What about the good old, well, drops, right? What if we go for the Reaver shenanigans again? The dancing will indeed continue. We took a little bit of hull damage for 0 apparent reason. There's the gravitic drive again. That is the shuttle or the warp prism movement speed. We'll have to start up one of the worms. There it is. It's actually more like a snail. Like a slug. I recommend this time around that if we're gonna go for the drop, that we don't bring the Dragoon, or at the very least, if we do bring the Dragoon, that we don't drop the Dragoon first, but that we bring out the Reaver first. Because every time you arrive there, you give your opponent an extra second or so before that Dragoon unloads. Or before the Reaver, rather, shoots its missile, right? Because of the Dragoon unloads. So, it just doesn't really feel like a right choice to me, but let's see. We're going fishing yet again with Reavers. Okay, yeah, we're not bringing in the Dragoon. Good. He is starting up the good old Scarabs there and no, we are bringing the Dragoon. Oh, okay, well, whatever. Whatever. We are building up the Scarabs here inside of the Reaver. Observer will reveal, that there are already missile turrets set up around the perimeter. So Classic knows he did lose the Observer because of it. What about the missile turrets in the main base? Well, he may very well fly by it because he does have the speed upgrade now. Let's see. Okay, he did unload the right unit at the right time. Okay, decent hit. Mule also ended up going down. Good number of Marines will float to the surface of Oceanborn. I guess the Dragoon is just here to tank some damage. Maybe put in a little bit of supplemental damage. Okay. Now, those are the big booms we're looking for. Although, I don't know if you can actually leave. You have to fly through, man. Oh, God, what a mess. Oh, jeez. Ah, where are we going? Who is piloting this thing? Oh, God. There's no way. There is no freaking way. How did Classic go? Did he get lucky? Honestly, he's been microing, he's been giving very strong hero vibes so far. right? Now, obviously, Hero has got some of the very best micro in all of StarCraft 2. But sometimes he's got very strong Diamond League vibes too. And if this would have been happening in the first game, I would have called Classic an absolute god. But judging off of the previous maps... Okay, let's assume that it was intentional. It was intentional. Wow, Classic. What a micro legend. He did get a little bit lucky though with all of those Marines repositioning themselves there. My god, I can't believe he got out. Well, let's see. What about this? Right over here. Surprise! Surprise! Oh, we're just fishing now. Good bit of damage being done. I'm assuming he will be looking into potential Wait. Oh, yeah. No, I thought for a second he was making a second Robo Bay. Whew. I'm assuming we're going to be looking into carrier production again, but this is not Terran mech. Dude, I love Reavers. They're so sick. I kind of hate how they walk with the one hand coming out of their mouth. But it's kind of beautiful in its own weird way. I think you always want to make a Cyclone against Brood War Protals. But because of the triple command center build here from Cure, he never really had that option. But I think a Cyclone is a no-brainer. It's just too good. Carrier production is indeed already here. Classic is adjusting to this series very nicely. And Cure, there's no way. A reverse sweep? It's starting to kind of slip out of his hands a little bit. Yeah, there's no way. He's just YOLOing it in. Vikings do show up right now. There's no recall available, but some lovely pickup micro again. Classic squeezing some slug juice. It sounds gross, but he's getting a lot of value out of those Reavers. For some reason, we're slowly rallying the reinforcing Reavers across the map too. It's ugly, it's kind of dirty, but there is an awful lot of damage done. And despite the fact that there were some losses on the side of the Protoss, I think it's good enough. I think it's good enough here for Classic. Classic has decided to just risk it all now. He's got 4 Nexi on the back of this and carrier production that has already kicked in. Cure is desperately playing survival. Oh, no. I don't think you want to pull the boys, dude. I don't think you want to pull the boys against Reavers. Why didn't they give me legs? What absolute masochist designs a unit that can... Oh, yeah. So you give Dragoons orbiting wieners, but the Reaver has to walk with a hand that comes out of their mouth. Alright, anyways, carriers are here. I do believe that we should once more go into the good old carrier upgrade that gives them the additional interceptors that they desperately need. We're already firing up the very fast +2 though, which is awesome. The only thing that's missing now is we do have a medevac drop attempted. Honestly, this is an ambitious play here by Cure, to say the least. He's also, in the meantime, pushing down at the bottom, though, and maybe this distraction in the main can work out for him. Okay. It's messy, it's dirty, but that's 17 probes. You know what? Keep in mind that Cure has had an extremely greedy early game, right? So, because of the greedy early game, the supply count is not nearly as bad as you would wager it to be after that many losses early on. He is getting the Graviton Catapult research now, by the way. Very late. But he is getting it earlier now than he did in the previous game. And ultimately, we will arrive again at a unit composition here for Classic that is just going to be difficult to stop. Obviously, in the first time, though, that they faced off on Oceanborn, it was mass Cyclone together with Hellbats and all the rest of it. Now it's going to be Marines with Stimpak. So, yeah, I would imagine Marines do a better job against carriers than Cyclones ever can. But it's still going to be difficult. How many Vikings does he have? 0. He lost the Vikings. I think you still need some sort of Viking production. Liberators, in the meantime, are added into the mix instead. Fair enough. Citadel of Adun is researching the charge upgrade. The Zealot leg enhancement research. Carriers, though, are cleaning all of this up eventually. And now the Dragoons are also joining in the fray. Yeah, it's a mess, man. So much damage. Ay. Woo! 31 probes do go down. but more losses in total on the side of the Terran with a very significant margin. And Protoss is now approaching Death Ball territory. I think that's why the medevac drops keep heading across the map. Kure trying to buy as much time as he possibly can. But the carriers now truly have arrived. Triple medevac drop down at the bottom. We could, by the way, make other units as well out of those starports, right? Like, we could make a couple of Corsairs, and maybe it would be easier to, you know, prevent these medevac drops from tearing them into 17 different directions. Either way, when we're deathballing, we're deathballing. Oh, Interceptor there, dealing some friendly fire too. The Widowmine, that is. And I think this drop over here is also going to be good enough. Yeah, the Marines and the Marauders are not going to have a very good time against this. They do get the High Templar killed, or at least one of them, maybe two. Ugh. But very soon, and it's really only just a matter of time now, this Protoss army is going to go across the map. Classic is going to face off against Ghost, though. So Marine Ghost, Widowmine, Medevac, bunch of Marauders in the mix as well to tank some of the damage. I mean, this is a real Terran army. It did finish up 2-2 as well, which is a big power spike. So Kure has done a great job just buying time for himself. But I am a little bit afraid that this Protoss army is just gonna waltz over everything that Terran has. Da-da-da-da-da. A literal waltz. That's what I'm expecting. Well, let's see. Can Classic complete the reverse sweep? Can he win the rubber match? EMPs do go down. We do have the Reavers now dropping onto the ground. The carriers have unleashed every single one of their interceptors. Missile turrets are here. Maybe storming your own units is suboptimal, but I'm no expert. Those interceptors certainly don't have infinite amounts of life, and they definitely should be taking damage as well from those storms. He needs to be careful he doesn't storm his own interceptors to death. I think that's what he's doing. That would be a Protoss move and a half, I'm not gonna lie. Either way, this Protoss army just isn't dying. That's the big problem, right? He can remake the interceptors that he lost, and at this point, they are just hitting so freaking hard. Brood War carriers, by the way, are very microable. Carriers have been considered OP for 25 years now. Maybe 30. How long has it been? It's been a little while, huh? And maybe Kure is getting a taste of it right now. Many StarCraft fans have complained over the years. I can't believe this, Classic. Classic is actually doing it. There is no way, man. Kure looked insanely dominant in the first 3 games. But Classic managed to get the job done. A reverse sweep in a best-of-7 grand finals. And it's not that, like, Kure started playing far worse, or that Classic started playing significantly better. But every single time the strategies worked out for him and he got better trades across the board, by no means the cleanest StarCraft series we have ever seen, but highly entertaining. It is apparently Classic who obtains the victory in this 14,500 StarCraft Evolution tournament. What a match.